Hello everyone. In this video, we'll be working on pandas. The title of the video is Python Crash Course 3. And these are the topics that we will be working through these set of series of videos. And in this particular video, I'm going to be covering Introduction to Pandas, series, and data frames. So pandas are, I would say, the actual workhorse of the data science, machine learning, and Python itself. As you may remember, we have learned about how NumPy works and what kind of things can we do with using NumPy. And Pandas is another library that's built on the NumPy. All right. So what we're going to do is the very first thing that we should do is you can go ahead and install Pandas to your terminal or command prompt. So go ahead and type conda install pandas, all right, to your terminal again, just like you did for NumPy. Remember that you've done a similar installation on for the NumPy, okay? You'll do the same exact thing for pandas. Conda install pandas to your either terminal or command prompt, depending on whether you're using Mac or Windows, right? So, and then after that, go ahead and import NumPy as MP and pandas as PD, so that we can go ahead and use PD while creating our data frames. Okay, but before that, let's talk about series and let's learn what they are and what kind of things we can generate with them. The very first main data type we will learn about for pandas is the series data type. Let's import pandas and explore the series object. So a series is very similar to NumPy array, but in fact, it's built on top of the NumPy array object. And I'm going to show what it is now. What differentiates the NumPy array from a series is that a series can have access labels, meaning it can be indexed by a label instead of just a number location, It also does not need to hold numeric data. It can hold any arbitrary Python object. Let's explore the series. Let's start with creating a series. So let us assume that we've got a list called labels. So it's our variable that we are creating, and it's a list. Okay, that list has 3 strings in them, right? A, B, and C. And then I have my second list, which I called my underscore list right here, as you can see. And then I've got numbers, 3 numbers in it. And then I'm creating an array by using NP. Remember, I've already, imported that object, right? NP here. So that's why I can go ahead and do it. np.array 10, 20, and 30, and I've got this vector here. And then I'm going to go ahead and create my dictionary, okay? I've got my key 1, I've got my key 2, and then key 3, and then I've got my value 1, value 2, and the value 3, all right? So what I will do is I'm now going to go ahead and, like if I go ahead and type labels, right? It's going to output the labels itself, the list of the labels, right? Sorry, did I run this? No, I did not. I forgot to run that guy. Okay, now it should work. Okay, so if I do labels, if I do my list or whatsoever D, right, it's going to go ahead and create that dictionary for me, right? Things like that. So now what I will do is instead of typing them, right, in their own format, what I will do is I will go ahead and type PD pandas, right? Dot series, and that's what I'm going to use. Remember, in NumPy environment, what I was typing was that np.array, right? That's how I would start. And then now in the Panda environment, while I'm creating series, what I will type is pd.series, and it is a template that I'm going to use from now on. And then I'm going to open a parentheses and whatever the data I would like to put in there, right? So in this data, right, in my series, what I want to create is the labels, okay? So you can either go ahead and copy and paste this guy here, right? The labels itself, right? So you can go ahead and instead of labels itself, you can go ahead and Control V, Control C, right? And you can go ahead and do this, right? And once you do that, it's going to create that series. But you don't have to do that. You can go ahead and call data and call the variable itself and the label. It's going to do the same exact thing. What it will do is that, okay, let me go ahead and do the Control Z here, Command Z, and I'm going to put back my numbers and things like that, right? And then like what it is going to do is that it's going to print my objects in my list, right? A, B, C. And then it's also going to create that index column 0, 1, 2. All right. So the index column does not have a meaning, but it's just a location, an index variable, right? Okay, so my main data here that I should pay attention to is only one column, A, B, and C itself. All right. And as usual, what you can do is you can go always, what you can do is like go into parentheses or anything here, right? And you can say Shift tab. And whenever you use the Shift tab, and once you expand that explanation, it will give you the explanation about that, whatever you are using, right? Whatever you are using for that, okay? So let me do it and do the, again, Shift tab here. And then now I'm expanding it. I'm not sure why is it not expanding. Okay, yeah, it's because of my screen is big. That's why. So you can go ahead and take a look at what it says. Like you can go ahead and put the data and then index and then data type and then name and then copy and then fat pattern. You can read the details of what is needed and parameters and variables and whatsoever those need to be. Okay, and even for some conditions, for some situations, you're going to see the examples of those types. Okay, so that Shift tab will even provide you the examples of the application of that specific function. All right, that's what you're going to have. All right, now let me go ahead and delete the cells in between. And I've created these cells just for you to focus on the cell that I am currently working. That's why I'm not, like in the previous videos, as you may have seen, I have those cells back to back. And now I've created these empty cells because I don't want you to see the one that is at the very bottom, because I want you to focus only on this guy so that you can learn better. That's why I've done it. Like if you're wondering about this, all right? So, or instead of labels, you can go ahead and do the my list. You can do that, right? And then instead of that, you can go ahead and let me just, call the other things. And then, sorry. Or what you can do is you can go ahead and in the data, right? You can go ahead and insert that dictionary here, okay? That dictionary, and you can go ahead and print it, all right? Once you print it, the only difference between the first two and the next one here that we've got here, in the dictionary, you've got the keys here. So those will be automatically used as an index. All right, so A to 10 and then B to 20 and then C to 30, right? That's how the PD, the pandas series, will take that into account. All right, that's the difference. All right, so let me go ahead and delete these cells again. And now we're going to do the same thing, and you don't have to enter that, type the name data here. Okay, what you can simply go ahead and insert the D itself, and it'll do the same exact job. All right, same thing here. You don't have to go ahead and say data is equal to array. You can just say just array. That's it. Okay, it's that short. All right, okay, and then now let's go ahead and take a look at my list one more time, and let's just create that. Okay, and then what you can do is, okay, now remember this was my list, right? The one that I've done was my list. Okay, now what I will do is, okay, again, if you do the Shift tab, you will witness that we've got a lot of arguments that you can bring into the game, right? You can do the index, type, name, right? For example, there is something here that we have not used that's called index. Okay, so basically what you can do is you don't have to put only the data, but you can also include the index. Okay, you can specify the index as well. And once you go down and read the things here, index, array-like or index ID. Values must be hashable and then have the same length as that data, non-unique, and so on and so forth. So you can go ahead and read all these details, and you can learn how to use those index. Okay, for this specific thing, what I want is that, remember, this is my list, 10, 20, and 30. And by default, my index numbers would be 0, 1, 2. But now what I want to do is I want to change them to 1, 2, 3. Again, same numbers, but then it's going to be 0, not 0, 1, 2. It's going to be 1, 2, 3. Okay, that is how it is going to work. All right, and then after that, what you can see is, let's go take a look at the labels. Okay, labels was a list, as you may remember, and I'm going to do some operation with that as well. Okay, so what I will do is that, all right, pd.series and data my list. So I don't have anything to do with labels here. So I'm going to go back this my list and then index. Sorry, let's remember what labels is. Let me step back and correct my sentence, my previous sentence. So we're going to use labels, and that labels was string. Remember, ABC. What I want to do now, I'm going to go back to this data mylist thing. Instead of using 1, 2, 3 as an index, now what I'd like to use is A, B, and C. So what I'm going to say is, okay, data mylist, okay? So it's going to be my real data, which is like, remember, 10, 20, and 30, right? And then index, I don't want 1, 2, 3, but what I do want is A, B, and C, because that's what my labels is, right? So what it will do is it will go ahead and create this ABC on the very first column, and then 10, 20, 30 on the second column, right? The real data, all right? The data, I would say, all right? Now, and what you can do is, again, you don't have to specify the first one is data and then the second one is index. If you have only 2 arguments in it and they've got the same size, Python will automatically recognize that the first one is your data and then second one is going to be your index. So it's going to output the same exact thing again. You don't have to worry about that, but you can use those, things interchangeably if you want to, right? So now let's go back to my thing. So let's remember what my array was. Remember, I had this array 10, 20, and 30, and then let me just delete these cells in between. All right, so pd.series array and labels, you can do the same exact thing. So you want your labels to be indexed now. Remember what your labels was, A, B, and C, and then your array was is going to be your data again. So it's going to generate the same exact thing. All right. So this is about the basics of how to create the series. Let's talk about indexing on series. The key to using a series is understanding its index. Pandas makes use of these index names or numbers by allowing for fast lookups of information that works like a hash table or a dictionary. Let's see some examples how to grab information from series, just like we were doing from the lists or dictionaries in the past, as you may remember. So let's create our very first series by saying pd.series, and then I've got my data here, and then I've got my index here. So what it will create is that, if I print the SER1, the series 1, it's going to create these USA, Germany, China, Japan, right, as my index, and then 10, 20. Remember, these are numbers, 10, 20, 30, and 40, right? So that's what's going to generate, okay? Now let's create the series 1, right, in a different way now, right? Instead of data, right? Again, I did not have to specify that this was the data, right? I could simply go ahead and type this guy only, and that's what I'm doing here. And I did not have to specify that index either, right? So I don't have to specify any of these. As long as they've got the same size, Python will automatically understand that this is a series, that the index is this, and then the real data is this guy, okay? So that's how it is going to recognize it automatically, all right? Now, let's create another series that's called series 2, all right? And then in that series 2, let's create this again with different numbers. It was 10, 20, 30, and 40, right? Now I'm creating 10, 20, 50, and 40. The only difference is between that 30 and 40, I mean, 30 and 50, right? And then, country-wise, the index-wise, right? USA, Germany, Germany. Instead of China, now I've got Italy, and then, the last things are the same as well. So let me go ahead and create my series 2 as well, all right? Now I've got these 2 series, right? And let me try to grab, let me print this series 1 again, okay, series 1, and then I've got this index and I've got this. So if I want to go ahead and print the series, the first object, okay, I'm going to go to the index column, okay, USA, Germany, China, and Japan, and I'm going to get the first in the index. Remember, the index in Python starts with 0. So what it will do is it will go ahead and pick the Germany, but then, what it will do is that it will get the number of that, okay? So remember, it's going to go ahead and take a look at the data itself. So what it will do simply is that it will go ahead and look at the index, and then, whatever is at the index 1, which is not USA, but Germany, it'll get the real data of that index itself, all right? And then if you do the same thing for 3, then what it will do is 0 is the USA, 1, 2, 3, and then whatever is the real data that's matching with that 3, right, it's going to be 40, right? So let me go ahead and create another series. Now I've got this USA, Germany, Italy, Japan, right? Now this is my data, and this is, as you can see, we're going to have a different look here, right? I've got my index as these numbers, right? These are numbers. and then I've got these countries as my real data now. So if I go ahead and type the series 0, okay, so what it will do is that it will go ahead and take a look at the index column. But then what it will do is Python, in the series, what it will do is that it will specifically want you, this index, to be not a number. Okay, so if you're using a number here, then you would have to specify the exact number, not the indexing. Okay, let me do it one more time. If you are using real numbers, okay, either integer or decimals, all right, in this case it's integer. If you're using integer numbers in your indexing, the way that it will work is that you should not be using like the normal indexing approach here. What you should do is you should go ahead and specify those numbers itself, all right? So in this case, if you want to do like 10, that is what it will do. So it will go ahead and grab USA from here, okay? And it will go ahead and, for example, for the very last example, it will go ahead and put the, Japan here, okay? So, but if you could do this, if you did do this, like instead of numbers, let me create these numbers, let me convert these numbers to now integers, right? Now that 50 or 20 or whatsoever, they are not numbers anymore, but to me, they are simple, what? They are just strings, right? Strings, sorry. So now let me go ahead and create series 3, and it'll do the same exact thing, but now these are not numbers. So since these are not numbers, you are welcome to go ahead and use those normal indexing approach. Whatever that 0 is, 0 is going to be matching up with USA here, so my output will be USA here, all right? And things like that, okay? So that's how it will do, and then now let me go back to my original version here. I'm going to go ahead and convert those strings to numbers now, so that I can go ahead and continue working on my Python notebook without having any issues. All right. So let me create those. All right. So let me rerun those, and then now I'm going to go ahead and do this, and then series 310 will be USA, and then now I can go ahead and delete the next guy here. Okay. All right, so the next guy is series 3 PD series USA Germany, Italy, Japan, and then now I'm creating my strings here. And then now if I do this, it'll go ahead and pick Germany for me, since it was the index at the index location 1, right? And then now I'm going to go ahead and do this, right? I've got the numbers here, and if I pick the series 3, it'll go back to no original form, and then now I can go ahead and print SER1. Remember, that is what it was, series 1 here, right? Series 1, as you might remember, right? Okay. What it will do is it will go ahead and print SER1. And if you print it, if you officially, quote unquote, print it, now what it will do is it will just go ahead and do the same exact thing. And then if you print the SER2, again, it will do the same exact thing. Now, what we're going to do is that, like we will say that the operations in between the lists operations can be done based off of index, all right? So what do I mean by that? I've got the series 1 here, and then series 2. If I'm going to go ahead and add them up, I can go ahead and add them up. And then what it will do is it will first go ahead and grab the indexes, okay? USA, Germany, China, Japan, USA, Germany, Italy, Japan. Whatever, the index do I have here, whichever comes first alphabetically, it'll pick that one. And then it'll go ahead and check it, like if the very first one exists in both of them. If it exists in both of them, then it will simply just add those numbers up, okay? But as you can see, China does exist here, but it does not exist in the second one. So therefore, it'll give an NaN, all right? And then Germany, it has 20 here, and then it has 20 here, and then 40, and then same thing, Italy does not happen here, does not exist, but exists here, therefore NaN, and then, so on and so forth. That's what it will do. And if you do the multiplication, it will do the same exact thing, okay? And what I'm trying to say is you can do these arithmetic operations, between the series. If, those exist, then if those indexes exist in both series, then it'll go ahead and grab the numbers for you. If those indexes does not happen in any of those series that you are doing the arithmetic operations on, you're going to get the NaN, all right, output, all right? So let me go ahead and jump to the next topic. That's called data frames. Now, as I said at the very beginning, series is something that's useful to learn, but then the real workhorse in the data science environment is the data frames itself, okay? And that's what we're going to be frequently using. Data frame is the guy that we're going to be using from now on, through the libraries that we're going to be seeing, like Pandas, Matplotlib, Seaborn, scikit-learn, and whatsoever the libraries, the packages that we will be seeing for the rest of the course. Data frames, being able to play with the data and frames and the tables, like almost like Excel-like-ish tables, right? It's going to be very, very important to be able to, play with those data types, right? So data frames are the real workhorse of Pandas and directly inspired by the R programming language. We can think of a data frame as a bunch of series objects put together to share same index. Let's use Pandas to explore this topic. It's basically like an Excel-ish table, as I said. Let's import NumPy as NP and Pandas as PD. And then now let's create our first data frame manually, okay? So I'm going to create this table here that I'm going to call it DF from now on, and it's a very common language that's out there. If you go ahead and Google it, you're going to be seeing that a lot of people will be using DF as a variable, if they want to refer to data frames, okay? And that's what we're going to be using. DF is equal to, my first variable is equal to, okay, this. Let me create a couple more things here so that, okay, we can go in and comfortably look at this. PD data frame, okay, that's going to be my data frame, and then open in close parentheses at the very outer loop, right? So that's what I'm going to see, all right? Data frame, and at the very outer loop, I've got this open and close parentheses, and in between, what do I have? I've got this Honda Civic, and then $27,000, and then I've got this Audi A4, right, which is $35,000. And then I've got the brand and I've got the price. Let's see what it's going to generate. So the very first thing that you will put is that it's going to be, your first row. So in Panda data frame, if we are using the lists directly, if I'm using lists, what it will do is that this is simply going to be my first row. This is going to be my second row. And these are going to be the name of my columns. And that's it. That's what it's going to see. All right. So my first row is going to be Honda Civic, and then $27,000. Audi A4, and then 35,000. And then now this is my real data, as you can see. This is my data, okay? And the reason that I've got two brackets around them, I've got two brackets here, I've got another two brackets here. Remember the NumPy environment. If I'm going to create like 2x2 matrix, right? Or anything by 2 matrix, I'm going to have these two brackets around, all right? The first row and the second row, and then I need the column's name, right? I need something because this is my data, but how do I, title my columns? So that's what I'm going to do. Columns, these are called brand and price, all right? That's how it's going to look like. All right, now let me go ahead and delete these things, and then let's see what we've got here, all right? Instead of that, what I could have done is I could have done pd.dataframe, okay? Honda Civic, 27,000, and this and that, and columns, brand and price. Now remember, at the very first example that I've got here, I had this indexing column 0 and 1. Now what I'd like to do is I'd like to specify some, strings or something else that I want to call A and B, all right? Now instead of 0 and 1, I want to see A and B, right? And that's what you're going to see, all right? Okay, so these are the super simple example of the data frames, in Pandas, all right? Now I'm going to play on the same exact example, and then I'm going to have this index ABC a little bit expanded, okay? So instead of 2x2, I've got this Honda Civic, Audi, and Ford this time, which I've added. And remember, I've still got these two brackets, okay? Two outer brackets. And in these brackets, right, I've got my own data, the real data. The very first object in that data frame is my real data. And then I've got the column's name, that is brand and price, right? And then I've got the indexing name, right? And once you go ahead and print this, it's going to print this like this, okay? Very first row, second row, third row, and then the column's name, and then the index name if you want to do so, all right? So that is what it is. And then now what I will do is, instead of, writing the data directly in that data frame, what I could have done is I could have created my own data, which is a list. That's a variable, right? There's a list variable. And now I'm creating my data at the very beginning. And then what I can say is df, which is my new variable data frame, pd.data frame, go ahead and put the data here. Okay, so instead of this, right, like instead of writing the whole thing here, right, now I'm going to go ahead and put data, because that data was a variable, remember, that, you know, has got the meaning of this guy, right? And then I've got the columns and I've got the index again, same exact thing, you know. So now let's create the data frames with dictionaries. I've got my first dictionary, okay? Dictionary subscore 1. Now I've got this brand, and then Honda Civic, Audi, and Ford, and then these are the prices. So the way that you create the data frame, you know, if you're using dictionaries, is a little bit different, okay? So you've got the keys and the values, right? I've got my first key, and then the first value, right? And then the second key, and then the second value. Remember, while we were using the lists while creating the data frames, what I was doing is that I was putting my data first, okay? And then, you know, like in these double brackets, I've got these things like row by row, right? Index by index, index number 0, index number 1, and index number 2, and so on and so forth. And then at the very end, I've got to put my brand and price and so on and so forth, right? That's what I was doing. In dictionaries, my brand, meaning like, you know, the very first in key and the value, that's going to be your first column. Brand is the name of the column, okay? And then go ahead and put Honda Civic right below it, and then Audi right below it, and then Ford right below it, just like this guy, okay? That's what it's going to do. And then go ahead and put your second column here, price, and then put these numbers underneath that, all right? And then now the same, the remaining is the same, PD data frame, and this is your data, and then, right, and then you're going to go ahead and put your index, which is ABC, okay? And you don't have to even put the index, but since we've done it previously, let's just go ahead and do the same thing, okay? So if you are using series while creating data frames, this is the way that you should do, like row by row, index by index. That's how it goes. If you're using the dictionaries instead, it's going to go at like column by column, okay? This is a difference. You don't have to memorize any of these. Like anyways, what will happen to you is that you will have to Google a lot of things until you get really comfortable. I myself do not know these on top of my head. You know, whenever I get confusion, I go ahead and Google it, you know, things like that. Worst case scenario, what you can do is you can go ahead and say like shift tab, like here, like whatever you are using, you do the shift tab. That is going to help you a lot. That's going to, you know, explain everything that you don't know here. And it's even going to give some examples, as you can see here, like how to do the things, all right? That's going to be a very beneficial thing. All right, so now let's go ahead and let's remember what was this, you know, remember the np.random seed thing. This was a random seed that is going to let you generate some numbers, and then I've used this 2021 as a random number again. So like whenever I use this number, it's going to go ahead and create the same seed. That means like if I go ahead and do this, some create numbers, right? Basically, remember np.random and random integer, what it is going to do is that it's going to create me 9 numbers that are in between 60 and 100. That's what's going to do. It's going to give me 9 integer random numbers that is in between 60 and 100. That's what's going to do. But since I've set the seed already, 2021, that means if I use the same exact thing here, if I use the same seed, right, it's going to give me the same exact number, 81, 60, and so on and so forth, right? If I did not use this guy, then the things will change, right? It's going to give me something different. And again, if I use it again, it's going to give me something different, and so on and so forth. So setting this is going to, you know, help you fix the numbers that you've got, all right? So now I'm going to go ahead and do this. But every time that you want to run this, you're going to put this on top of that, whatever, you know, cell, so that you could generate the same exact numbers, okay? And there is a reason that I kind of reminded you what this random seed or random integer means, okay? So what I will do is, now instead of this, you know, 1 by 9, I'm going to go ahead and create this size 3 by 3, okay? So I am still going to get like these 3 by 3 means like 9 numbers, but not in one, you know, series. I'm going to create myself a matrix whose size is 3 by 3 between 60 and 100. Remember, we've done it in the NumPy environment. And what it will do is that it will go ahead and select the first 3 number as the first row, and then these 3 will be the second row, and then these 3 will be the third row. And of course, at the outer loops, I've got these double brackets, okay, meaning that this is a two-dimensional array. That means it's a matrix. It's not a series or vector. All right. So what it will do is, right? So now we kind of like refreshed our mind on this. Now what we will do is we'll go ahead and create our data frame. Honda Civic 27,000. Remember the same old thing that we've done before, right? And that's going to be my brand and price, right? Now I've got something else to do here, right? So what it will do is I'm going to go ahead and set my seed, random seed here. From NumPy, random, and import random integer, okay? So what it will do is that, okay? Okay, I'm going to use that, for the second thing. All right. Now, what you can do is if you want to directly go ahead and use the random integer, this is what you can write from numpy.random. So you don't have to go ahead and do this anymore. np.random.random, like normally that's what you do, right? To create those numbers. But if you set this first, basically you're telling Python that, you know what, Python, random integer like np.random integer is something that I very frequently use. So why don't you go ahead and take this in your memory, okay, so that I can go ahead and use the random integer from now on a little bit comfortably, okay? That's what you're basically telling Python here, just for your information, okay? So again, what you're telling Python is that random integer, this function is something that you are using very frequently. So you don't have to type like all of these from scratch. What you can say is, Python, keep this in mind, okay? So that in the future, I'm going to be using random integer without having to write these, all right? So that's what you are doing here. So here, what we're going to say is that, okay, Python, we're going to create this data frame, 81, 60, 90, and then whatsoever these numbers are, okay? And then index, as my index, I've got my student 1, student 2, student 3, and then test 1, test 2, test 3. So this is what I'm trying to create, a bit simply. All right. So I wanted to create 3 tests and 3 students. Student 1 has got like 81, 60, and 90 from test 1, test 2, test 3, respectively, and student 2 and student 3, and so on and so forth. Okay. Here is my real data again, 3, 3, 3, the first 3 rows. And I've got the indexing, and I've got the columns. All right, and so on and so forth. All right. So what it will do from now on, what I will do from now on is I'm going to go ahead and set my seed again, numpy random import random integer, the same exact thing. Now, what I am doing is, instead of manually typing these numbers, I am telling Python that, Python, can you call these numbers? Okay, so I don't have to type all of these, manually. I'm going to call Python to do it. But remember the function that I'm using. I am using randint function directly. Because again, I had told Python that, Python, be careful and make this guy ready for me, because I'm going to use it very frequently. All right, that's what you're ordering to Python. And then Python is, instead of writing all these like long data here, go ahead and say random 600 and give me 9 of them 3 by 3. And then of course indexing, of course columns, and then it will generate the same exact thing what you had done before. All right. So what about selecting and indexing from from this guy here, from the data frame? Okay, let me go ahead and remember what my DF was, the data frame. Remember, that was my data frame. So if I want to go ahead and select only test 1, and that's what it's going to fix, right? What it will pick is that it will go ahead and grab from the columns, it will grab the test 1, all right? And in a series format, all right? Or if you want to just, write it, if you want to, I would say print it in a table format, what you can do is you can just kind of, put another extra parentheses around test 1. So that means double parentheses, right? You're going to create them, you're going to Python, you're going to have Python write it in a table format, but not this format, but then this format, okay? So double bracket instead of 1 bracket, okay? Just for your information, it's a simple thing, but it's still useful at some places, all right? So, or you can sometimes not, printing only 1 column, but you can print 2 columns at a time, right? 2 columns for all of those rows, all right? That is what you can say. All right. And then, or you can create a new column basically. Remember our df, the very last df was what? The most updated df was this guy, right? What I will do is I'm going to create a new column. And that new column is going to be equal to the test1 column plus 3. So what it will do is I'm going to see a new df, okay? And then what I will see is, okay, that df will have a new column called new column, okay? And then the values of those new columns will be whatever the test1 values plus 3, all right? 81 plus 3, 84, 82 plus 3, 85, and so on and so forth, okay? So that's how the operations work at the data frames. And then I can create a new column called average now. Remember, this became now new data frame, okay? Now on top of these, I'm going to create a column average, and that average will be the average of test1, test2, and test3 values divided by 3, as you can see. All right. So if I go ahead and print the TF, what it will do is on top of the new column that I had created, it's going to create another new column here that's called average. All right. So that's what it will do. Removing the columns will remove the column. So df drop. So go ahead and drop a column. Okay. And then, that is called new column. And go ahead and access one. Like if you don't do this, again, if you do the shift tab, what it will do is it will, like by default, it will, like if you don't say anything, it will go ahead and take the axis 0. It will go ahead and drop something from axis 0. That means from the rows, okay? If you don't specify the things, it will go directly to the rows and try to, delete something from the rows. That means indexing. Okay, here we're specifically telling Python that Python go to columns. Python, can you please go to columns and then pick the column called new column and drop it. Okay, once you drop it, that's what you will have, but it's not going to happen in place. If you go ahead and print df again, it'll go back to its original format, because again, if you had done this again, shift tab, again, by default, it's not going to be doing it in place. That means it will do it it will do it temporarily, okay, and it will show that it dropped the new column. But whenever you go back to original thing, it'll go back and do the same thing, right? Create the same previous df. So it's not going to be affected from that drop function. And by the way, since it's a good place to mention about it, so whenever you're going to use a function, let's say you're going to df dot something, that means Python, get ready, I'm going to use a built-in function, all right? What you can do is you can hit tab, okay? And then when you hit tab, okay, in your cursor, it will open you the available functions, okay? ABC, aggregate, append, drop, like a lot of functions that you can see here, okay? So this is the function that we're going to use. And right after that, you can go ahead and say, like, you can do this, basically shift tab, and Python is simply teaching you how to use the drop function. Again, let me go back. Like whenever you are intending to use a built-in function, that means like df, like whatever the object that you're going to be using, dot something, that means you're about to use a function, a built-in function, and you can go ahead and hit tab, and it will give you the available options, all right? And then after that, you can simply stop writing like dr, and then it'll give you the drop thing, okay, whatever, starting with drop. And then after that, shift tab, and it'll exactly tell you how to do it, like df drop, open a parentheses, and then after that parentheses, put this, put that, and so on and so forth. Okay, that is how those things work, and we're learning these things on the way, by the way, because it's impossible for me to teach everything, in one class. So we are learning the things again on the way. If you were to do it, if you did want to do it in place, so what you should have done was that you can go ahead and say, okay, let me go ahead and use this Dropbox thing. I mean, this explanation thing again. In place false. What I would suggest you for this, not to make a grammatical mistake. Okay, I would just copy and paste this guy here. In place, normally it's false, right? So if you do it true, right, what it will do is that it will go ahead and take it, make that change, not temporarily, but permanently. So whenever you go ahead and do this, it'll just do the real change. Okay, that change will stay. But for our thing, as a default place, like if you don't do anything, it will just not do it in place. Sorry, I should go back to my df, I guess. What was my df? You know what? I should just go back to my very original DF, by the way, wherever I had created it. I guess this was the place, right, that I had. Did I? Okay, this was the one. Right. Let me go ahead and, or let me rerun from here, right? Doesn't really change the things. Whenever you had these codes, like Python, as you know, we learned in the past, Python is always going to memorize the very last updated version of whatever the the item that you're using. Okay, so df drop, when you drop it, it simply drop the new column, and then whenever you go ahead and retype the df, it's not going to be affected from that change because it was not in place. All right. So now if I'm going to go ahead and drop the new column in place too, again, that'll execute it. All right, that will execute it, which I already talked about it. Now what I'm telling Python is, Python, can you drop the B from X is 0? And now what it will do is it will go to the rows and do it. And what if you did not do it? Okay, what if you did not put this X's? Let's see what it's going to do. It's going to do the same exact thing. Because by default, again, if you do Shift Tab, by default, it's going to be the X is 0. That means you don't have to specify that. Okay, that is what it is. All right. So now if you go ahead and do this df thing, again, it's not going to be affected from the changes because it is not in place as usual. All right. And then now let's go to the next, selecting the rows. So this is my df again, selecting the rows. So if I want to specifically select, select a specific index, all right? So in this case, I want to go ahead and select index A. What I will tell to Python is that, Python, can you go to the index and can you look up for this A letter? And then can you give me that specific row? All right? That is what it will do. All right? So it will simply give you the rows that is related with, that A thing, okay? And then, or you can simply do that instead of using location variable, location, function, you can use the iloc function. That means index location. Instead of specifying the name of that index, okay, the string of the index, you're simply telling Python, can you go grab the 0th index? That means the very first row to me. Can you write it down? Okay, can you print it down? That's what it is. All right. So if you want to select the subspace, like, can you go to location A and only pick the test tree? Okay. And remember, I've got these like 2 brackets outside. So that's why, it's giving me this, in a table format. If I did not have this, like, for example, if I did have this guy, let's see what's going to happen. All right. So it's going to give me this number itself. Okay. But the previous version, remember, I had these double brackets, behind those, items. I've got these table format. Okay. So it depends on what you want to do. And then now what I want to do is I want to get the location A with every single column, right? That is what it is. That is what it is, right? In a table format. All right. And then I'm going to go ahead and delete those. And then I want the location. I mean, I've got the lock variable, right? Everything with the test2, test3. Remember, it's just the same exact approach that we have done in the listing, in the in the dictionary approach, and whatever we had learned in grabbing, slicing, and things like that. We're applying the same exact thing. The only difference that you should know is location is simply you have to specify that string itself. While you're using iLocation, that means you don't have to do that, but you do have to provide the index of that specific row itself, right? So Python, can you give me, sorry, here, what we are doing is that we're not grabbing, but we're changing a thing here. Remember, what we're telling is, Python, can you go to location A and test 3, and then instead of 90, remember the existing value is 90, can you convert it to 85 and then print me the df, okay? So instead of 90, as you can see here, test 3 was 90, now it's 85, and so on and so forth, okay? And then now you're telling Python, can you go and grab the very first, again, the A, location, and then with test2 and test3 only, and then so on and so forth. Okay, and then Python, can you grab me the test one only, and then Python, can you grab me the test one in a table format? Okay, things like that. So that's it so far related with this data frames and series. In my second video, I'm going to continue with the conditional selection. Thank you very much for listening to me. I'll see you in my future videos.